Hi, guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today is Sunday, it's the 2nd of June 2019, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. If this is your first time watching, welcome. I really hope you will enjoy the show. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back and being a regular viewer of the podcast. I am so grateful for those of you who have been watching for weeks, months, or some of you even years. That's just crazy. So today is a knitting podcast, but I'll also be talking about some spinning. So we'll start with some finished objects, works in progress, and then I'll go into some spinning. I have some spinning acquisitions, which usually I don't show you guys, but this time I thought it would be fun to maybe chat a little bit about my plans with spinning and what I'm planning on doing next, and then possibly we'll talk about some life in general after. It was actually quite funny. I just set up everything, which sounds professional but really means I just piled everything onto my desk. So I have my whips here, my finished objects and acquisitions here, and it's all behind in front of my monitor that I usually use to work from, my big screen, and everything was just piled up and looking really funny. And then I was like, so where did I put my microphone? And it turned out my microphone was right underneath all of that, so I had to just dig it all up again, and it's looking quite funny. But anyways, let's talk about some knitting. I'm on my first coffee of the day. Apparently this is becoming a podcast that always starts with coffee. First one, I'm already feeling quite energized, so I think it can only get crazier from here, which is great. Sorry about the clunking. I have this new straw made of glass. Testing it out. So far I'm really liking it, but it's making clunky noises. Why am I apologizing? I don't know. Anyhow, let's talk about some knitting. So I have 3 finished objects. First up, you guys, look at that. I finally, I think after 3 months of knitting on this, I have finished this night shift shawl. So this is a pattern by Andrea Maury of Drea Renee Knits. This is called the Night Shift Shawl, and it is written, I think, with spin cycle yarns in mind, so a sort of handspun looking yarn. I think it's written for a DK weight or something. I would say it's a DK, or maybe it's a sport weight. I don't know, it's a heavier yarn than what I used, because I used all these leftovers and skeins of handspun that I had spun ages ago. So this was not a recent handspun, but rather skeins that I spun back when I was spindle spinning, for example. I think there was some wheel spun yarn on here as well, and all of it was really fine fingering weight yarn. So looking back on this, I only realized that I used to be quite good at spinning for a while. So I just grabbed a couple of skeins and a 4mm needle and knit this shawl. And because obviously the yarn was much thinner than the original pattern, this thing just dragged on forever. So I just knit it until I was so sick of it, and I decided that the size would be big enough, which I think it is. I'm not going to put it on because it will mess with my microphone, but this is how it turned out. I'm really happy with the colors. As you can see, I chose all these pinkish, purplish skeins and also some gray and blue. And there's all sorts of fibers in here, so I did notice I was wearing it the other day, but just over a super light tank top, so that may have been the reason that I found this to be quite itchy. And there's a lot of merino in here, but there's also some BFL, some messam, possibly some mohair. I know that there are a couple of skeins in here of braids of fiber that I got from Fondant Fiber, and she sometimes does these sort of more unusual braids, so it's got a bit of a prickly factor to it. What I will do is I will wash it. There's also some sparkle in here, by the way. What I will do is I will wash and block it again and just soak it for longer. And then I also think, I'm probably not going to be wearing this with tank tops really, but I can wear it in winter when I'm more covered up anyways, and I think it should be fine. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I wasn't quite sure about it when I was knitting on it, but blocking definitely made it look a lot nicer. In terms of the patterning, I didn't really follow the pattern. So the original pattern gives you a proper way of when to alternate sections and colors, and it also, however, gives you a recipe. And then you can just do whatever you want. So I just kind of did that. I just changed colors and everything just the way it felt right. I also, towards the end, I held some of the really fine yarn double, and you can't really see it in the end result, but it just turned out pretty well, so I'm very happy with this, and I'm definitely tempted to knit another one of these. I would actually like to spin for one specifically, so rather than just picking up colors that I already have, pick some really nice colors that I want to go together and spin it more into like a DK weight yarn maybe. I could definitely see myself knitting more of these, or even possibly just using up some skeins in stash of commercial yarn. I really did enjoy the pattern. I don't know why it took me forever, but the rows were very, very long in the end. So that is my night shift. My next finished object, I'm so sorry you guys, it is 26 degrees. It is officially like warm weather and I'm not wearing a woolen sweater. But I have finished my Arata sweater by Jennifer Steingast. This is a top-down circular yoke sweater, which I talked about in the last couple of episodes. And I did, yeah, here we go. I did actually dig out the label for you guys. So the yarn that I used for this is from Pickles, which is a Norwegian yarn store. It's their pure wool, which is a non-superwash wool, which is perfect for color work. I always feel like this orange is called terracotta, but I'm not sure if I'm just making that up. But they don't have that many colors, so you should be able to find them. So I finished the sweater. What do I have to say about it? You may remember I was playing Yarn Chicken with this, and in the end I decided to go for shorter sleeves, so they're kind of 3/4 length, almost bracelet length, to then be able to add some longer ribbing to the body, because I just thought that that would be more important to me, because I only had 2 100-gram balls of the orange, which is why the Yarn Chicken situation even started. In terms of modifications, I mentioned in the past that my gauge was off because I only swatched with the lighter yarn. And it turns out that the lighter color, or maybe possibly undyed color, it was spun differently. I don't know why, but you can definitely tell just by looking at it that it looks a lot thinner. I'm not sure if you can tell on screen. So therefore my gauge swatch lied and my sweater turned out to be bigger than expected, which means that it is a very, very loose fit around my shoulders and bust. There's like, I would say at least 4 inches, if not more, maybe 8 inches of positive ease in this. But I do really quite like it. I've been wearing this, and because the sweat and the sleeves are quite short, and it's definitely, you can see I did a lot of decreases. So it's drawing in at the bottom. It actually looks really nice, and I'm really, really happy with this garment. If you are interested in how this fits, I posted a photo of this on Instagram, and I will definitely be wearing it at some other point during the podcast. I really enjoyed the pattern. I really, really enjoyed the yarn. It blocked out really well, so I think the color work turned out really beautifully. And I'm very happy to have this done, now that we have 25 degrees. But I did actually wear this quite a lot on our 3-day holiday, which I will talk about later. Lastly, I finished all the things, you guys. Are you proud of me? Because I am definitely proud. I also finished these handspun socks. So these are the socks that I've been knitting out of a yarn that I spun from a merino and nylon braid by Das Mondschaf. I had spun this yarn and then chain plied it, and because I had split it up quite a lot into very thin strips, by then chain plying it, I got this almost stripy yarn, which I think is really fun in terms of the color placement. And also both socks look relatively similar, which makes me very happy. I don't mind it if the colors go all over the place, but I wouldn't have liked it if one had like really thin stripes and the other one really thick ones. I don't really enjoy that, but these are definitely fraternal socks and I'm very happy with them. So I think the last time I talked to you, I had not even finished the first one. I just finished the first one. But this is where we are. I had a fingering weight 3-ply chain plied yarn, as I said, so I did 60 stitches over a 2.5 millimeter needle, which is a US size 1.5. And I think these turned out really well. I just knit them stockinette with a Fishnips Casio. And yeah, I think they may be my favorite hand-spun sock design that I've knit so far. Or not design, my favorite pair of hand-spun socks. Just because the yarn turned out really nice and round. There was a lot of twist in it. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed knitting these, and even more, I just enjoyed just the colors popping up randomly. I thought it was a really, really fun braid to start with. And I have some handspun socks. I'm always really happy to be using handspun because a lot of times you don't, and especially when you're spinning for socks, you know, every time you do it, or at least I do it, I want to improve. So the only way I can, you know, find my mistakes and improve is if I knit it up relatively quickly, and then I can know where I will go from there. But yeah, I really enjoy, like the stitch definition is really nice. The yarn is relatively even, not super even, but I think I did okay considering it is hand spun. And this was still spun on my proper non-E spinner wheel. This was spun on my Woolmakers Bliss. I have the single treadle, which I love. And I have some more sock yarn spinning plans, which I think I'll talk about later. So they're done, and that is it for my finished objects. Just in general, regarding everything I talk about today and in all of my podcast episodes, I don't do show notes. But I have pretty good Ravelry pages, which I will try to link underneath each video, so then you can just click on whatever project interests you in case you didn't understand or need information about, you know, colorways, needle sizes, possible modifications. The only thing I will say is that I do a lot of modifications on all of my sweaters and I don't write them down in the project pages. Simply because A, it takes time, and B, these are just my personal sort of ways of modifying things to fit me. So I'm not modifying because I don't like the pattern, it's because once I reach the yoke, I don't really look at the pattern. So yeah, that is that. But you should find most information there. Also, just very quickly, someone notified me last week that I had some weird sound issues on last week's podcast, and I don't know why. So I couldn't really figure it out yet, so I haven't really been able to change it. So if it happens again this week, I'm very sorry. I will try to figure out what it is, but I really have no idea, so maybe it was just a fluke. We will find out. And if it does come back this week, I don't think it was very, very noticeable last week, so it should be okay. Alright, let's move on to some works in progress. My table is so full right now, I can barely move. First up, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about my works in progress, to be honest. I have been working, I only started working on it yesterday, but I have made some progress on my La Bien-Aimée sweater with the yarn that I picked up in Paris in February. So I originally cast on for the No Frills sweater, which is a pattern by Petite Knits. But again, I'm just modifying this thing so much, I kind of feel bad calling it a no frills sweater because I am basically not doing everything that is characteristic of this design. Like, I often talk about how I modify things and I still refer to them as the original design, and I'm fine to do that. I don't want to discredit anyone. But with this sweater, the no frills sweater is a sweater that is, you know, characteristically a huge oversized sweater, and it's also knit with mohair. So you have this big cloud of oversized sweater with almost like bat wing arms. And what have I done? I've taken out the mohair, I've made it much more fitted so it doesn't really have that oversized fit anymore. I've changed the sleeves, so therefore, is it really a no frill sweater or is it just a top-down sweater? I'm not sure. Anyways, I used the numbers to cast on and do the short rows because I got the right gauge with this sport weight yarn. And as you can see, I have just finished the decreases, and then last night while watching a movie with Kai. I separated for the sleeves and am now just knitting on the body. So like I said, I've been modifying this quite a bit, and the reason for that is mainly that, well, I'm playing Yarn Chicken again. Because I bought this yarn in February and I didn't want to spend so much money. So I realized that going for an oversized sweater is not a good idea, and I want this to be quite a fitted sweater, hence all the adjustments. But anyhow, the yarn is really, really stunning. You can't really tell. There is no pooling. I am alternating skeins, but I was still worried that, it may still kind of show up stripy or something, but it really isn't. The yarn is just absolutely beautiful. I'm alternating skeins using the helical knitting method, which you can find plenty of videos for on YouTube if you're interested. And these colors are just amazing. Also, I picked this up yesterday. Okay, so I just completely broke my entire video setup. Very sorry about that. This is the label, in case you're interested. I can never say the colorway name, so I'm not going to say it today. But you can see it down here. It's in the Merino Sport base. And I was noticing yesterday, I picked this up after having been working on a lot of more sort of woolly, not to say rustic, scratchy, whatever you want to call them, like the more traditional non-superwash yarns, and this just felt like a massage to my hands. Like, this yarn is so plump and soft, and I did really enjoy working on it, which is new to me because usually I'm not a huge... I don't decide on garments or yarn based on how soft it is, really. I prefer like sheepy qualities to my yarn, but this has been really fun. All right, next up, should we stay on the topic of sweaters since I'm talking about them already? Let's talk about this one. In here, I have a new cast on, and again, I'm so excited about this, you guys. The yarn that I'm using for this, very quickly, this is the opposite of what I just showed you, basically. This is J.C. Rennie in their unique Shetland range. You may know J.C. Rennie. They do a lot of yarn that is similar to Holst, and this is my first time trying it. I really want to try their normal, I think it's called J.C. Rennie Super Soft as well. But I got this yarn in a D-stash from a podcast viewer, so you may recognize this yarn if you're the person who sent this to me as a D-stash. So therefore I don't have any labels or anything. But anyways, this is a 100% wool yarn. The only thing that I don't like about it, and I feel quite strongly about it, is that it is called Unique Shetland, which indicates that it should have Shetland content in it, Shetland being a sheep breed, and it doesn't. And Louise of Knit British has talked at length about sort of the appropriation and the issue with what's called, air quotes, Shetland type yarns, which are basically to say that they are using a sheep's breed name for yarn that doesn't actually have that sheep breed, and there are some things that are wrong with that. So I'm just going to leave that there. And if you are interested, I think it was the first episode this year of the Knit British audio podcast, the one where she talks about Shetland. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting. But besides that, this is my first time knitting with J.C. Rennie yarn, and I decided to go for another Strange Brew sweater. So you may remember I knit a Strange Brew sweater in the beginning of the year sometime, and loved it so much that we actually even did a Strange Brew knit along, and I always said that I was going to come back to this pattern, and you guys, I finally have. And look at this, isn't this just amazing? I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but this, just seeing it on the screen, makes me so excited. So let's break it up. What am I doing? The Strange Brew sweater is a pattern recipe by Tin Can Knits, and the idea is that they give you all the numbers, all the maths, and a couple of design ideas for you to design your own colorwork sweater. So you can choose 3 different yarn weights. I think it's like a fingering, a DK, and possibly an Aran weight. And you can choose a size which goes from like tiny, tiny, tiny baby to adult sizes. And you can decide, do you want to knit your sweater top down or bottom up? And I think it gives you instructions to how to turn your sweater into a cardigan so you can steek it. I didn't read those instructions, by the way. But it gives you all these different, basically everything you need to know to then design your own sweater. And the last time I did that, I did the top-down DK weight version using Rauma vinyl gun. And I kind of made up my own designs basically because I didn't scroll down far enough in the ebook to realize that they had some ideas and charts already there. And for this one, I couldn't really decide what pattern I wanted to do, so I decided to do another strange brew. But I really have been wanting to do another steeked sweater, so you basically knit a sweater in the round and then you cut it up and it turns into a cardigan, so I decided to add a steek. As you can see, I'm doing it top down. And for this one, whereas with the first one I did like Excel sheets and made my own charts, for this one I just picked charts from whatever was there and whatever felt right. I didn't really plan it out at all. I just knit on it and I'm having so much fun with this. So you can see I did a shorter 1x1 rib, then a couple of different charts, all of which are in the Strange Brew ebook if you're interested. Then I split for the sleeves, and down the body I am doing a flea stitch, which I love flea stitch. The one time that I've done a cardigan like this was the Damiaka Lopa, which I also steeked, and I wore this when we were in Norway last year, and it's been a great sweater, and I've really enjoyed having like not only the look of the flea stitches, but also obviously it means that you have strands on the inside as well, and I'm dropping stitches, so it makes it a little bit more cozy, and it's just amazing. So I just decided to add flea stitches, and I'm just working down the body now. I did some short rows in the back. At the bottom, again, tin candles give you all the instructions. And I am just so in love with this pattern and this sweater. I think I'm going to wear it a ton. And I've been realizing that every now and then I should have a couple more cardigans because they tend to be handy if you don't really want to decide between a wintry sweater or a summery outfit. Big surprise, right? Yeah, so I just love this so much. I'm sorry, I keep on waffling on about it, but I'm just so proud of this. I'm really enjoying the color work, and this just flew because I just used pretty small charts. I think the biggest one was 15 rows, and then you do the increases again, so there's always different things happening. And again, you guys know how much I love this pattern, and no, I am not endorsed. I just love this pattern. And if you take a look at my project pages and look at my first Strange Brew sweater, it looks completely different. So I just think it's so interesting that with one pattern you could do like 200 different sweaters, really. In terms of gauge and all that sort of stuff, let's just put that away because it's too warm. There's a fingering weight version, but I actually swatched, and you know that I like to knit things more on a looser gauge. I just find them more wearable, and I don't like garments, like the traditional Norwegian garments that are on a super tight gauge and then they're very stiff, and I don't really need that for our climate either. So I swatched and I got a DK weight gauge again. I got perfectly 22 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters, even my color work. So it seems that I've found a way to be able to knit both stockinette and color work on the same needle and get the same gauge, which is good. So I am once again using the DK weight instructions, and I think the yarn, I did a little swatch and it folded up beautifully after blocking, so I'm sure it's going to do the same here and it'll be fine. So that is my Strange Brew sweater number 2. A little bit of a confession, lately I haven't really been trying on my sweaters. So I've not tried that on once, even though Tin Candles tell you at a certain point to try it on, but yeah. And I also haven't tried on my La Bien-Aimée no frills sweater, so that may go wrong, but really I feel like I've knit enough sweaters to kind of know my measurements and how I need to knit things so they fit, because all of the ones that I'm knitting at the moment have very similar constructions, so I'm not too worried. Yeah, so that is that. Now let's move on to some socks. So first up, I think I showed these to you last week. These are the socks that I'm knitting for Kai's sister. They're just plain vanilla socks using a French yarn. This is Bergère de France in the Gumi 50. And this is the cutaway. So they come in 50-gram balls. It's just a self-patterning sock yarn. And I picked a lot of this up when we were in France. I think I picked this up 2 years ago now, which is crazy. It's been 2 years. I'm starting to feel very old. But anyways, these are just plain vanilla socks. I'm doing 60 stitches on a US size 1 2.25 millimeter needle. And I need to measure them because I know his sister has tiny, tiny feet. So I may be ready to start the toe very soon. I did a fishnet heel and I just really like the patterning. I think it's just really pretty. So this has been my on-the-go knitting. I've just been taking this along when we were having coffee and doing things on the weekend, and yeah. This sock actually went hiking with me, and boy, that was some really, really intense hiking. I'm never doing that again. Actually, I will. But it's really funny because these socks went with me on my hike, and Kai's sister is very, very sporty and loves hiking and doing marathons and all these things. So I just thought it was very, very fitting. Next up, I have another pair of socks, and these are very fun. I cast on some socks from a yarn that I got for my birthday last year. So exactly a year ago, and I just thought it's about time to cast them on. And these were a gift from my lovely friend Grace, and this is the yarn which I'm not going to pronounce because I don't know how. But this is a brand, I think it's local to Grace. So I think the dyer is somewhere in the Pittsburgh area, but I may be completely wrong. If I am, I'm sorry. But it's their Mon Sock Heels and Toes set, and the main color is called Pygmy Puff. And there was also a purple mini with it, which I don't have with me to show you, but oh well. So you guys, ooh, that's coming up very bright. And that is a very accurate color description. This yarn is super, super, super bright. I wonder why Grace sent me a pink yarn, because obviously I love it so much. And I cast on some socks, and I just wanted to do a tiny bit of patterning without having to think about anything too hard. So I just looked at all the patterns that are either free on Ravelry or were in my library already. So I think most of you know that you can filter patterns by free patterns. And I barely ever knit free patterns because I love supporting designers and all that. But for this case, I just wanted something super simple, and I landed on these socks, which are the Decathlon socks. It's a free pattern. It's very, very similar to the Blueberry Waffles. And yeah, it's just been exactly what I wanted. It's a fun pattern. I think it looks really good with the yarn because a lot of patterns that I looked at I knew wouldn't be good with a very bright and also variegated yarn. But these are very fun, and I'm still working on the first sock, as you can see, but I'm really enjoying them. So I think they will be for me. At some point I need to decide whether I want to put in the purple heel or not. Originally I had not planned on doing that, but then I saw some people knit up this colorway with the mini, and it looked quite nice. So all that to say, I don't know yet. Alrighty, that is it for my works in progress, and it feels so good to actually have that be it, because in the past I've always had that stupid shawl waiting for me, and I had some languishing projects, and it feels really nice to just have gotten rid of all of those. And yeah, we're back to 4 whips, I think. Although I do have another shawl that I want to cast on with more handspun because I'm knitting up all my handspun. But yeah, I'm trying to keep the number of whips low, which, I mean, low for me is like 4 or 5. So I think I'm doing pretty well. So next up, I'm going to be talking about spinning. If you're not interested in that, there's no real yarny content beyond this point. So I'm just going to be talking about some spinning, some acquisitions, and some spinning plans. So yeah. First up, I have a new finished skein of my big project, whoops, and there's a yarn tag attached to it. So you may remember, if you've been watching for a while, that I'm spinning another sweater quantity of yarn. And this time I'm spinning from a very local fiber. So I got a kilo of carded fleece from a German sheep breed called Coburger Fuchsschaf. And I'm spinning my first woolen long draw sweater quantity as well. So I'm learning a lot of things at the same time, but it's perfect because this fiber is just, I have so much of it, I don't need to be worried about messing it up. And last time I had these two skeins to show you. These are underweight skeins, so I think altogether they're like 150 grams. Let's look it up. This one is 60 grams, and this one is 80 grams. There you go. And now I have another one finished. So what I've been doing is I've actually been spinning this on my e-spinner. I have an Ashford e-spinner 3, which I love, and its name is Eddie. And because the best thing about that e-spinner is that it comes with huge bobbins. I think they're supposed to fit something like 200 and something grams. They don't fit that much for me, but what I've been doing is I've been spinning 2 bobbins full, which equals to about 100 grams on each bobbin of these singles. So once I finish the second plying bobbin, I will actually have 2 of these skeins finished at once, if that makes sense. So I will basically just spin 200 grams and then ply 200 grams. And the first skein is this one, which is finished, and the other one is still on my wheel, and I will hopefully finish that today. For this third skein that I finished all together, I only got a yardage of 230 meters, so it's slightly thicker than this one, and I know that the next skein is going to be pretty much the same yardage too, because obviously it's the same singles that I'm still working on. Oh my gosh, could I make this any more complicated? It's a really simple thing, but I think I'm just overcomplicating it. Anyways, so I'm going to be having 2 of these slightly heavier yarns and 2 skeins which are more like 200 and I think 50 or 60 meters per 100 grams. So these are slightly lighter. But they look really similar, and I think overall it won't really matter too much. So you can see here, this one is supposed to be a little bit lighter than this one, but it's a woolen spun yarn and it's going to bloom, and it's not super even anyways because, like I said, it's a woolen spun yarn. So I think it will be fine. So these are done, and what I've been doing is I've been spinning the singles long draw. I've actually been spinning a lot of unsupported long draw, which again has been really fun, and I feel like I'm just learning so much with this. So I am really excited about the end product of this, but I'm also really just embracing the process and the learning that I'm doing by spinning this project. And with my long draw singles, I have then just been making 2 plies out of them, and yeah, just the nature of things is that this yarn is a little bit more fuzzy. It's not super even. You can see like it's not a plain white fiber either. There are some rougher hairs in there, but I think it's actually turning out really well. I'm really happy with myself, and I can't wait to knit up some samples. I actually have some sample skeins somewhere, so I could just do that. But I'm worried, I think, what if it doesn't knit up as beautifully as I'm imagining it? But I know I won't want to work on it, so maybe I will just finish it first. But then, at the same time, I've been thinking about all these other things that I want to be spinning, so I'm also contemplating, once I have my third skein or fourth skein or whatever you want to call it done, the one that is still on the wheel, about taking a break with this fiber and spinning something else. So I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I don't want to be forcing myself to spin on something to get it done if I really want to be spinning something else. But I'm also worried by taking a break that maybe I will, once I come back, I will slightly change what I've been doing, and therefore the consistency will be worse. Another idea would be to actually keep spinning this on the e-spinner and spin my other project on my wheel, my non-electric wheel, which, I don't know. The thing that I really want to spin is a crepe sock yarn. So if you haven't heard about that before, again, sorry, I'm going to get technical for a while, but there are lots of discussions as to what yarns and what spinning techniques are best to knit handspun socks in the end. And I have gotten the Ply magazine, which had, I think it was the winter edition, 2018, but I may be wrong. They have a whole magazine just based on sock yarns and spinning for sock yarns. And one kind of sock yarn that has got a lot of attention, and I mainly got onto this by watching other people's podcasts on spinning, namely Rachel of Welfare Pearls, who has the Wool and Spinning podcast. A crepe or crepe yarn seems to be a way of spinning sock yarn that is very interesting and also could be really, really amazing for socks. So I hope I don't mess this up, but really, essentially you spin 2 singles one way, a third single the different way. I'm not going to confuse you with Z and Z and S. And then you ply 2 of those singles together as a 2-ply, but with twice the amount of twist that you would usually do. And then you ply it the other way around with a third single. So what really happens is that last single would just kind of wrap itself around the other yarn. And it is supposed to create a really interesting yarn that is also supposed to be amazing for socks. Also, it just sounds really fun, doesn't it? So I really want to do that soon. I feel like I've done a lot of chain-plied socks. I've done some 2-ply sock yarns. I'm not really interested in doing a traditional 3-ply sock yarn, mainly because I would have to buy more bobbins and I'm lazy and I don't want to spend more money right now on spinning equipment. Also, I don't know, I think it's supposed to be a little bit better in terms of holding up than chain-ply sock yarn, but I'm just not really interested in that right now. But so I really want to do that, and I think I'm going to actually start that later today. I just need to figure out which wheel to spin it on. I'm also thinking it may actually not be a bad idea to spin it on my Bliss wheel, but then I really love my e-spinner, because I could spin it on my Bliss wheel and then ply it on the e-spinner, but I think the plying is the more, not difficult part, but the part where you need to pay more attention anyways. So that's a little bit harder on the e-spinner. So really what I'm saying is I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I do want to keep on working on this project. And I also really badly want to do a crepe yarn. So one way or the other, both are going to get done. And yeah, you will just find out about it on the next podcast. Also on spinning, I usually don't show you my spinning acquisitions, but I thought I might just as well show them to you today, because I don't have any yarn acquisitions, thank goodness. And because, yeah, it's interesting. So I just came back this morning from a little trip that we did to Allgäu, which is a lovely area in the south of Germany, close to the Alps, where we tend to go quite often. And it was really funny because I wasn't looking for any yarn, I wasn't looking for any fiber, yet I came home with almost a kilo of fiber. So on the Thursday, which was a public holiday, there was a big market in Füssen. And it turned out that someone there was selling what they were calling felt wool. And they had all these colors just sitting there in a basket. And I was like, well, I want to buy this to spin it. And the guy was like, you can't, because this stuff is made for felting. But really, I can't see any reason why I wouldn't be able to spin it either. I think he just, and he kind of said later he doesn't really know. He just knows felting. But this looks, I didn't really find out too much about it, but this looks to be just a plain merino yarn. I don't have fiber. I don't think this, he didn't say that this was local or anything. But it was really, really, really affordable, and I just decided to pick up these 2 100-gram braids of rowing, I suppose. This one is just a natural white, and this one is like this. It kind of changes between a bright yellow and a greenish yellow. And I'm thinking this might actually be a really fun thing to both just spin just both of them as singles and then ply them together and just have a really fun barber pulling white and yellow yarn. I think that could be really, really fun. Like maybe even spin it more to like a DK weight yarn, have it a quick spin and then have 200 grams of DK weight yarn to knit a fun shawl or something out of it. What I also could do if I were willing to put in the time is I could make some either Rolex or bats on my blending board and have more like a mix of these two colors, and I think this would be the more pretty thing to do. But the truth is I don't really enjoy fiber prep, and I love the blending board, but it takes so much time to get not very much yarn processed, so I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but that's what I'm thinking. And then the next day, there was another market in Kempten, and we were having lunch just opposite of the market, and I saw that there was a stall, and they had all these like felted slippers and hand knit socks and all these woolly things without having yarn. And then I saw these huge, huge things just hanging there, and I was like, what is that? Is that fiber? And turns out it was. So what I saw hanging from a distance was this thing. And they were just hanging out. And like I said in the beginning, I didn't really know what they were and if they were fiber for spinning or whatever they were selling. But it turns out this is actually fiber. The guy was really nice. This is fiber that comes from a Bavarian mill near Bad Aibling, which is very close to Munich actually. And this fiber is all grown and this isn't spun obviously, but they also spin wool all in that little part of Bavaria, which is amazing. And this is I think over 300 gram braid of just pastel colors of their fiber. And they had these sort of pastel ones, and they also had some more bright colors, which didn't really appeal to me. But this is just so fun, and just look at it. This is proper German fiber. This is no merino. You can tell it's got a very different feel to it. It's very, very crimpy, so it's going to make, I think, a really fun, fluffy yarn. And I just had to pick it up because I thought it was amazing. So this was my first yarn baby. And then what I really had wanted was just a natural braid to go with it, but they didn't really have that. But then what they did have were these braids. So these are all the natural colors. I don't know if they're dyed or if they're just, I assume they're dyed, but I don't know. So I picked up this as well. Look at it, how sheepy is that? I'm not really sure if I love the brown in it, but Kai really liked it, and oh my gosh, this looks ridiculous. Yeah, also 300 grams is kind of a weird amount because if I were to spin for a sweater, which is what my mind is constantly working on at the moment, I would need just over 300 grams because I mean, I could if I were a great spinner, but I'm still not that great at consistent spinning for large projects, so I'd rather always have a little bit more fiber. And then if one skein turns out to be not really fitting the rest, I still have 3 skeins that work together or something. Also, it just gives me more fiber to sample with and figure out what I'm doing. So now, sorry, I just dropped my sweater. Now what I'm thinking about is, what if I spin one single in all of these colorful colors, and one single with all the natural colors, and then do a 2-ply. I don't know, guys. Tell me, is that a good idea or is that a terrible idea? My thinking is that I know some people, they make these really, really colorful hand-spun sweaters that are very obviously and purposefully hand-spun, whereas my hand-spun tends to I try to spin yarn that kind of looks like commercial yarn. So this is going to be a white yarn similar to maybe Jamieson Smith. But I know, for example, Mina, who is doing a lot of spinning at the moment, Mina of the Knitting Expat, she knit a hand-spun sweater for her daughter, and it has all these colors, and it just looks so beautiful. And I would really like a colorful sweater. But I didn't want it to be just too colorful by getting 2 of these braids. But if I spun these two together, like I would get all these crazy colors, I think. Like, you know, you'd have the yellow with the black, for example, and then maybe the blue goes with the brown and the red goes with the white, and it will just all intermingle. But what I can't tell just from thinking about this is this going to be a really pretty thing, or could it just turn out really muddy? So I don't know. So if you're an expert spinner, please do let me know what you think, because I would really, really be interested in informed feedback on this. I'm not going to be spinning this right away. I also know that, how do I know? Because I looked at the mill and you can actually order from them, which I may or may have not done. Actually, of course I did. So I could always just get like just a 300 grams of white fiber to go with this. If you think that's a better idea, I think it may be. Also, Kai really liked this, but he doesn't really want anything knitted other than socks, and I'm not going to. I don't think I'm going to spin this into socks for him. All these ideas, all these things, and I don't really know what I'm doing yet. So if you have any input, if you're a spinner, please do let me know. I would be just interested in ideas that maybe I'm not thinking about here. I know I have a lot of fiber. I have 600 grams altogether. So there are definitely lots of options of things I could do. But I just haven't made my mind up yet. But this fiber is just stunning. I mean, you can tell that these have been hanging around the stall probably for a while, so they're a little bit felted in places, but I think I can figure it out. And the fiber itself, it's just beautiful. So that was a lot of spinning talk, and also that marks the end of the podcast. I know that I have been promising you guys both a proper spinning video and a sock review video, and I will do these things at some point. Maybe I do them sooner rather than later, but at least you have some spinning content right there. So, in terms of life in general, what's been happening? Really, nothing that special. It was a short week, which was great. Love living in Bavaria. You get all the public holidays. Just as a side note. Besides that, it's just been work and life, and like I said, we went away for over the weekend, which was really, really fun. Yesterday we did a hike, and it was very fun and also incredibly exhausting. And I think we were walking for not like walking around, but like walking up the hill and then down the hill for 3 hours, which for me was quite intense, but it was also very, very fun, and the weather has been great. So it's been good. It's been perfect. And I've also, as you probably have been able to tell, I've been doing a lot of knitting. So yeah. Anyhow, my voice is going, and also I think I'm at the end of the podcast. So I hope that you enjoyed this show. I will probably be back next week. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great Sunday and a great start to your week tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Happy knitting. Bye.